I'm calling this meeting to order at 7:01. Welcome to regular meeting number 1437 of the Wachusett Regional School District Committee. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on Holden TV and Channel 194 and holdentv.com. We have two members joining us remotely tonight. Dana, can you hear us? Natalie, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Yep, thank you. Thanks. The next item on the agenda is public comment. We have one citizen signed up for public comment. So you can come to the podium and just please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Robin Pasca. I live at 33 Keep Ave in Paxton. I am the president of the Paxton Garden Club, and myself and two of my fellow Garden Club members, who are not speaking but in the audience, are here on behalf of the Garden Club for a simple but thoughtful request, hopefully. We are here this evening to ask support for our proposed community garden project, and specifically to request a letter of support to accompany a grant application we are submitting to a local bank. This community garden, which includes a greenhouse, raised beds, rain barrels, compost, will be a public space for the whole community, but it's also being thoughtfully designed as a shared resource for Paxton Center School, K through 8. PCS students would have access to the greenhouse for hands-on learning that supports the Living Things science curriculum, particularly its unit, Soil and Seeds, allowing those lessons to move beyond the classroom. We also plan to include a shed that the art students and Mrs. Ruckus can turn into a mural, adding creativity and a sense of pride to the space. We have already received letters of support from the chair of the Paxton Economic Development Committee and State Representative Ferguson. A letter from Wachusett Regional School Committee is especially meaningful because it helps the grant funder see that this community garden demonstrates an educational value of the project and highlights the strengths and partnership between the school and the wider committee. So we thank you for your consideration. If anybody has a question, I'm happy to answer it.
Not right now. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll be in touch.
I appreciate.
Yep.
Yes,
Thank you.
appreciate your time. Thank you.
Next, we have Chair's opening remarks. Good evening. CPAC is hard at work preparing for their community forum, which will be held on January 21st at 7 p.m. in the Curriculum Center at the central office. So they unfortunately are unable to join us tonight as was previously planned. I encourage school committee members and anyone interested in the experience of our special needs students to attend this community forum. I appreciate the cooperation between CPAC and the administration to make this important event happen. The next meeting of the full school committee will be held on January 26th. This is a special meeting for our budget retreat that will be held in the Curriculum Center of the central office. The superintendent will give an update on the FY27 budget creation at the time, and it is the key time for school committee members to discuss their thoughts on the FY27 budget. So I encourage all members to reflect on what has been discussed at this table, the reports we have been given, and all of the information available to you to prepare yourself for this retreat. Thank you. Next is the student representatives report, so I'll turn it over to Grace and Colleen.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As always, thank you for giving Colleen and I the opportunity to share a few updates on what's happening at the high school. Tonight's going to be a bit shorter than usual, but we did have a very productive first week back at Wachusett. I'd like to start off with some exciting news from athletics and school spirit. Last Friday, we held a banner-raising ceremony for last year's state champion girls basketball team during our annual Silent Night game. For those unfamiliar, Silent Night is a fun tradition where everyone comes dressed up in their pajamas and the gym stays completely silent from tip-off until our team scores 10 points. And that's when everyone starts cheering. It was a great way to celebrate both school spirit and the hard work of our athletes, and we loved honoring our last year's championship season.
Looking ahead academically, midterm exams are coming up during Martin Luther King Jr. week, and students are beginning to prepare, and teachers have been helping everyone review and get organized. While it's been a busy time, it's also an important opportunity for students to reflect on their progress this semester. I'd also like to highlight our open house, which took place last Thursday. Invitations were sent to local middle schools, and we were happy to welcome many prospective students and families. The evening including informational sessions on our academic and athletic programs, such as dual enrollment, advanced placement courses, and pathway programs. There was also a club fair, which showcased the wide variety of extracurricular opportunities available, as well as a student panel where current students shared their experiences and answered questions. Overall, it was a very successful night and a great representation of what our school has to offer. Thank you again for your continued support of our students and staff and programs. I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is the superintendent's report, so I will pass it over to Dr. Riley.
Thank you very much. So as Mr. Sklar loads the report, I'll share with you, we're going to make a brief comment about our standing with the Princeton community, talk about the snow day decision that I made last week, talk about policy 3510, give a CAPS collaborative update, and then we have Interim Director of Student Services, Ace Thompson, who's going to do a presentation for us. First, I just wanted to read a brief statement. The district would like to affirm our continued commitment to supporting the families and children of Princeton during this very difficult time. We'd also like to express our deep respect and appreciation for the excellent work of the Princeton Police Department under the leadership of Chief Paul Patriarca and the support of Resource Officer Holly Doyle. Personally, I'd also like to thank the TPS staff and teachers, their guidance support staff, and we had guidance support staff from the high school available to those students today as well. Just want to thank them all, along with interim Principal Beth Ann DeFonso, who's really done a really excellent job making sure the kids are cared for. Next, I wanted to talk to committee a little bit about a decision last week that I certainly deeply regret, and wanted to share a little bit of a process in terms of what we go through on snow days, so people in the community understand the process we do go through. But I just want to acknowledge, and we had put out a statement in a survey, it was the wrong decision that we made last Wednesday. And I made it. I want to be really clear. Ultimately, those are decisions that I am responsible for. I ultimately have authority to make those decisions, and ultimately when they go wrong, that's my responsibility. I do want to share and make sure people understand that these aren't decisions that I'm making in isolation, and it's important they understand we go through a process. It's not simply me waking up and deciding what we want to do. We typically are consulting and always consult with our town DPWs. We have a listserv that we work with in terms of other decisions school districts are making, and have a weather service that provides us with updates. That said, I certainly would say that certainly our back roads, and also, I'll be honest, the conditions of our schools, the parking lots, front walkways, they weren't safe for kids. And if anything, we should have at least had a delay, and we probably should have had a school closure that day. I'm sharing that because not only, and I think, unfortunately, we actually had a bus that had an incident. And I think sometimes, and I had a lot of people reach out to me, and people wonder, do we think about these things? And, none of the children were hurt, but I certainly think about that experience for all those kids. And, there's a good minute there that they experienced, and I'm sure they still think about that I really wish I could take back for them. So I wanted people to know that we've gotten great feedback from the survey we sent out, and some of the things that we're doing kind of moving forward to try to do better moving forward. One of the things I think we've identified is we're trying to make these calls at 4 a.m., between 4 a.m. and 4:30 in the morning. And when that happens, you're not always going to be aware of evolving conditions. And then we also don't really have the data in terms of what other programs might be looking at. And what the conditions may be, 2 hours down the line. And so we try to do that honestly to make sure we give appropriate notice, primarily to the bus company. And there are going to be days that we're not going to be able to do that, and that's going to have to be okay because we'd rather make the right decision. I think the other thing that happened this time through is things got progressively worse. I think the towns and we thought we were in okay position, but instead of things getting better, they actually devolved and got worse as the time went on. And so one of the things we're certainly looking to do is to make sure we have that flexibility and to make sure, like, hey, this is not a decision we're going to have to make at this time at 4:30. We're going to have to delay, and at times we may not be giving notifications, and we may have to be okay with a really late call on certain days. We're also going to have follow-up meetings just to make sure that we're all using the same filter about what conditions are acceptable on our roads and what we're looking at. I think we really should be meeting with DPWs on a yearly basis. We had not met with them this year, and so we're going to make sure we follow up with both them and the bus company to talk about this past time through, and also to look at the data that we've been provided. We've gotten both feedback from our families about particular streets they were worried about, and then also particular schools. So we have to look at what that feedback is and share that out with our providers to say, okay, here are our trouble spots. What can we do next time to make sure we don't make this call? But I do want to kind of double down. Ultimately, as everything in the district, it's my responsibility. And so in no way do I want to try to say this is a result of anybody else but me. But I also want to assure people these aren't decisions that we're just making or trying to make in a vacuum. Although ultimately it definitely wasn't the decision that we want to make moving forward. I was going to stop at this point in case anybody had questions.
Actually, I had a couple quick ones. So the first one was, I think I heard by rumor, and I never confirmed this. If you do call any kind of delay in the morning, the flexibility you mentioned, is that also so you can choose to close if, like conditions really did get... I was kind of curious because districts I'd heard that did that, I'm like, well, what made y'all decide that line of fact-based,
In terms of calling a delay? Typically, I think if we want to call a delay, I think when you originally call it, it's with the thought that additional time will get the roads or the schools. Like, I think you typically would probably make it if it was the snow event or weather event would end, and then having time to address the needs. Like, I would think that providing additional time on that morning for our staff in terms of the parking lots and then also the walkways would have been good at a minimum to help address that need. It may have helped giving road crews additional time to reach back roads. It was such an event, though, I kind of wonder if they still would have been in the condition we would want them in for there to be buses on them, to be honest. Some school districts did do that, and I think that, I think that ideally sometimes when you do call a delay, you do still have the opportunity, and I think they did that in Nash West, that they ended up canceling after calling a delay. And, they said, we're sorry to do this, but, the bottom line is that's the primary filter we need to use, is not to make sure that kids or families are on the road and that there could be a potential incident. We're always, I'd be lying if we don't think about childcare, all of those things. Like, we really do want to try to, whenever we can, make the calls the night before, and we try to do that. We rarely, if ever, call unexpected early dismissals for that reason, because then you worry about, are the kids going to have a safe place to go? We'd rather call the full day at that point than actually call an early dismissal, because sometimes that's even more disruptive for families, and there's more of a risk that kids won't be cared for at home. But to your point, I think a delay can cause or can create two address two separate situations. One, we can give additional time if the event's ended. And then also, it does give you an opportunity to perhaps have more time and make a consideration like, look, we called it delay, but at this point, we feel like we're going to have a full closure. We didn't do either, and we should have at least done the delay. And in looking at the way the day unfolded, I think it probably would have been safest not to have the buses on the road at all. So,
Thanks.
yep, absolutely.
Can you elaborate on how you work with the bus company? It sounds like you tell the bus company, but I was wondering if the bus company gives you feedback too. Is it a two-way street? Because I really think it
Yeah.
really should be.
Yeah, and so they should be giving feedback. And I think that we had spoke the night before, and they were worried about, icing on the buses and making sure that they could be clear and put forward. I know there are times, we talked to the DPWs on that morning. I don't think there was a conversation with the bus company. Instead it was we feel good about the roads. I would agree with you. That's one thing we have to check that box too, and make sure we're getting their input in terms of how they feel about it. Not just are the buses going to be ready, but what are your concerns for the driver?
Exactly.
I would agree with you.
It's just it's an area for really good feedback and another point for information.
Yeah, and we've gotten a lot. Look, I'll be honest, we've gotten hundreds of responses, and we're working through those. And, obviously people feel strongly, and I think they should.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, Jim, I appreciate you addressing this, and I know it's always a difficult call. And my question is actually about the feedback that we've gotten, because I really do appreciate that you've asked for community input. What will we do in terms of follow-up to all of the input that we've gotten from the community?
Yeah, so I'm going to have a couple of, we'll share the response, share the plan. I think I'm addressing it now because I feel it's important and timely, and certainly we got out, our statement and put out the survey results, but we'll talk about this again. I'll bring it back to school committee. I certainly will reach out to the families impacted, we'll share the full plan after we have not met yet with the other stakeholders who work with us on it. I assume, much to Member Beardmore's comment, we'll get some feedback both from the DPWs and the bus company about, hey, we feel like this would help us as well, and I think it's important to listen to that. And so I think we'll have another report back to the full committee. And then also, we haven't done this before, and I think it's something I've thought about. But really something we should do is have something about this process on the website, so people can say, snow days, this is how we do make our decisions. This was when you can typically hear from us. These are the things we look for. I think Barry has a nice thing on the website where you can always provide feedback from the district. We didn't do that. We thought some of these targeted points were important, where we could share with the towns, hey, these are the roads that people are most concerned about, but then we could also get the feedback about our own conditions around the school, because like I said, it wasn't just the roads. I think it was also the schools themselves that we want to take a look at and do a better job with. But we'll report back, I think, to everybody about, hey, I'm sharing right now, I guess, our intended next steps, and I think there needs to be follow-up that if this is what we did. These are the concrete changes you'll see moving forward. By and large, when I think about something like this, I've been here 3.5 years, and I've made two decisions that two of the worst days of my time here have been both last Wednesday, and then there was I think it was my first year. There was an event where it kept on snowing during the day. Those are days that you just hearts in your mouth the entire day. And here's the thing, though, and I feel good with the majority of the decisions we make, but this is one of those things you get about 1,000%. You know what I mean? And thank God nobody was seriously injured, but that doesn't mean those kids weren't impacted that day. And the last thing we need our kids worrying about is if they're going to arrive safely. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, you get it.
I know obviously you want to take the time to make sure that you really do all your research and come up with a lasting plan, but I was just wondering how you feel like you're going to address, because it could be a snow day or an ice day next week. Obviously, we're in the middle of winter. I realize there's a lot going on with administration and DPWs, but I didn't know if you felt there were things that you could tackle for impending, snow incidents and ice incidents this winter as opposed to like next winter or something?
I think, we talked about a few already in terms of, I think I think sometimes people reached out, and I'm trying to answer your question, so I don't mean to, go off topic. Some folks reached out, it was like, hey, do you understand that ice is as bad as snow? Like, that we should be looking at the conditions and not just worried about if there's 6 inches on the ground. Absolutely. If you ask me, my personal biggest regrets is ultimately we have checks and balances in this process. And I think at times, when reports are indicating, hey, we can get it, like I always want us to have school. I do. I think this is I shouldn't have to be reminded, but I think moving forward before we have these meetings, I certainly understand that the ultimate check and balance is me asking questions about, look, if we can't guarantee that the roads are going to be safe or that the schools are going to be in the condition they need to be, at a minimum, we need to make sure we're calling a delay. And so that's what I would say before, we meet with the DPWs and things like that. Like that's something I immediately have full control over, and I need to make sure I'm doing. And if you ask me my primary concern with what didn't happen that day, it's that. I should have said, it's too early. A lot of things could still go wrong. I'm not comfortable making the call right now. Or, yep, I know I may get 100 emails of people telling me that you guys are lazy and just don't want to work and you've ruined my day. But I'd far rather get those calls than to go to a site and see a bus off the road to know that 8 kids had an experience that they didn't need and they didn't ask for, right? And so that's what needs to happen immediately, to tell you the truth, that things improve. And then there are other things systemically that will help make sure it doesn't get to that point. And that's the other stuff. That's the other work I get to make sure it happens,
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. The other thing I wanted to talk to the committee about was policy 3510. We are recommending a change to that policy to be in compliance with past a bargaining agreement with the WREA. The change documents the current practice already in place that I provide support or information about class size reports at a school committee meeting in both November and March. Upon review of the administration, we did not think there were other changes that needed to be recommended for 3510 at this time. This matter has been a point of discussion for us during recent negotiations, and one of the things that was uncovered is that was in a previous agreement that we would look at that policy. And while we've been good about keeping to that agreement and doing those reports, I think you all know very well that we give those reports twice a year. The fact that it could be implemented in the policy was pointed out by the WREA, and I think the chair felt it was prudent to respond accordingly. I certainly agree with her, and so we felt like it would be important for the committee to consider that change so we don't have to continue to bargain with it, and can show the WREA that we're always serious about keeping our commitments, even if we're doing it in principle. If there's a matter in practice in terms of putting it in print, that we're willing to do that as well. And then finally, in the superintendent's report, you had an update from CAPS Collaborative. I wanted to inform the committee that I have attended all the CAPS Collaborative committee meetings since joining this past July. Copies of the FY25 second quarter report, an independent audit, and the 2025 final annual report were included in the most recent superintendent's report. Inclusion of these reports and providing opportunity for their discussion fulfills requirements for both CAPS Collaborative and the district as a participating member of the collaborative. I have personally read all these reports and been in these meetings. I personally do not see any items of concern in both these reports and also the committee meetings that I have attended. But I am happy to seek additional information if committee members have questions or concerns, and that certainly doesn't apply just to this meeting and this superintendent's report. But if moving forward, when you look at those documents, you say, hey, I'd like some more information on this matter, I can certainly reach out to their business manager and get that information for the committee. And then I was just going to pause for both of those if the committee has any questions.
Any questions? No, looks like none.
Okay. So finally, the star of the show, I'd like to invite Interim Director Ace Thompson to provide us with a student support update. Ace has been with us, I believe, since maybe last January, February. When we made his interim appointment, his position is one that the district is going to be advertising and interview for again. That said, I want to thank Ace for what I deem excellent work since he's been with us. And he's one of the things I always make note of with Ace is that he sees all of our kids, particularly our kids who may be traditionally marginalized. And so I want to thank him for his efforts and excited to hear some of his observations about the district and things he wants us to consider. So, Ace.
Thank you, and thank you all for allowing me to be here and present this evening. I'm going to talk about the state of the Office of Student Support. It's almost a year now that I've been in the role. Does everybody have the presentations on their laptop or have access? Okay. Sorry. I come to the role with, as Dr. Riley pointed out, with a keen eye towards those marginalized populations. It's where my experience has been professionally, and so when I come in here, I come with a focus on what it looks like for all our students on a day-to-day basis, but also particularly what it looks like for those populations. With that being said, there's three main areas of focus I want to talk about tonight, things that I've had an opportunity to observe, some that I've been able to start making some headway on some change, and some things that we still have some work to do for my office. I want to talk about the registration process, our process and procedures around attendance, and what our SEL supports look like, particularly in terms of staffing across the district. So, currently, our registration takes place in individual buildings. I didn't include ECC on here because their registration looks a little bit different. But overall, in the past, for this school year, we've registered 669 students. And that's 12 different people that have led that, 12 different secretaries that have led that registration process. I bring that forward because anytime you have 12 people doing the same thing, you find inconsistencies. I think that's the nature of the beast there. I think when you're talking about school secretaries, you're looking at a lot of competing demands. It becomes a bit of a capacity issue. They're hampered by the time that they're allowed and the locations in which they can provide these services. If you go to register your student at a school, you're probably in the main office, you're probably in the lobby having these conversations with the secretaries. I want to be clear. I am in no way besmirching the work of our secretaries. I think they are amazing. I think the things that we ask them to do and the things that they're able to do, next level. That being said, there's problems with the registration process being there. Ultimately, the struggles that I've seen come through my office is, registrations without complete custody understanding, and that takes a lot of time to backtrack, let alone what that experience looks like for the kid and the family. But that's a lot of effort in the central office to figure out, to support the secretaries after the fact. We do a lot of work around residency. I think one of the pieces that impacts students the most is if we don't do the registration correctly, if we don't do our homework, if we don't have the IEPs, if we don't have the language surveys, and we're not identifying kids' needs before they step in the building, we're adding to some pretty significant transitions for these kids. If they come in and they don't have the supports they need on day one, then we're doing a disservice for them. And not only that, you look at, when you're talking about special education, you're talking about replacing them in the right classrooms, and sometimes are they even in the right school if they come in with an IEP with significant needs. We need to make sure that we're catching that in time when we're having those conversations. I think talking about the confidentiality and where this work is happening, it's really hard to for families to come in and to have this conversation. Hey, you know, like we're living with my uncle, and we're probably not going to be there very long, or we're having some financial insecurities. It's a missed opportunity for us to identify and support families if they don't feel comfortable coming in and having those conversations. So with that said, I'm not here with all the solutions. I'm going to tell you like what I'm working on. I'm working on a checklist and a form to support the secretaries in making sure that we're being thoughtful and methodical in our approach, and that we're making sure that everything is lined up before we bring the kids in. I think the other piece that we still have to consider is the additional time, and and this might even be something down the road where we talk about positions. Is this a capacity issue, and we need someone else to take a look at this. I think about secretaries, and they're bound by the contract, and they also have limited time over the summer when a significant amount of the registrations take place. Yeah. The other piece I want to talk about a little bit is attendance. And I want to start off with, not only do we take attendance, but the state takes attendance. And they have certain barometers and measures that they use. They talk a lot about chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is 10% or more of the school year missed makes a student chronically absent. That's 18 days on a 180-day schedule. What I'm presenting to you is where we stand against our DART comparisons. And if you'll notice, we're not on the side of that chart where we really want to be. About 11% of our students qualify as chronically absent. So that's 10%, over 10% of our kids missing over 10% of their instructional opportunities. That's a problem on several different levels. You drill in a little bit deeper, and you start talking about those marginalized communities, the high needs, the English language learners, the low income, and the students with disabilities, and you are twice as likely to meet the criteria for chronically absent. These are the kids, not that we don't want all kids here all the time, these are the kids that we need to have in the building, in their seats, accessing instruction the most, and they're the least likely to be there. When we look at, some of the potential reasons why, the policy hasn't been updated for a while, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. When we formed an attendance task force last year, the special education department did a root cause analysis, and so coming into the year, attendance was a known issue. So last spring, a task force formed. We looked at processes, and I'll tell you, we had 13 schools send in pretty much 13 different letters at 13 different times. And so there was a lot of inconsistencies there. I think the other piece was schools lacked a robust system of interventions. You send a letter, you maybe have a phone call, and you might have a meeting with the principal or the assistant principal. And that was pretty much what we had. So the task force, and I'd like to thank everybody that served on the task force. I'm not going to name them all because I know I'll forget somebody here, and I don't want to offend. But we also had Amy McGarry as the nurse leader, and eventually we brought the school adjustment counselors in as well. Through their work, we've identified specific timeframes in which we're going to send specific communications, what triggers a referral to the MTSS process. We're leveraging Panorama to track progress in these things, and also the Panorama playbook has a whole section on different interventions that can be used to support students with attendance. The school counselors were a huge help in going through that and kind of prioritizing, making recommendations around which of those interventions they felt were most effective and which grades they were most effective at. This year, the supervisor of health and wellness has been in the buildings talking with nurses, talking with the MTSS teams when you do have kids that are meeting criteria for excessive absences or chronic absences. She's been a tremendous benefit for all in that conversation. We do have a draft updated policy that should be coming to the subcommittee shortly, and that's not timed to go along with this, but it did seem to work out pretty well. Also, I wanted to make sure that everybody is aware that we do have an event coming up on Wednesday with Massachusetts Partnership for Youth, where the Office of Student Support is hosting an online virtual presentation. The focus this month is on supporting families and supporting students who have chronic absenteeism. So if you haven't had a chance to sign up for that, or if you know anyone that could benefit, the link can be found in an email we sent out last week, but also in the website for the Office of Student Support. We've done a lot of training with the counselors beyond the work of the attendance task force. There have been some PD opportunities put forward to them. And then I'm really excited to say that after a tremendous amount of work and the support of the IT department, we're able to implement shortly an attendance plug-in to go on with Power School. And this is going to be, as a former principal, I would have loved this. As students meet the criteria that the attendance task force has set out, administration will be alerted. They'll have the standard letters that go along with it, automatically formatted for them, and they'll also get a reminder that, okay, this is the time to refer to the MTSS process to support students. So I'm really excited about that. Should be coming in the next, I'm not going to overpromise. It'll be coming soon. And then the third piece I wanted to talk about was the SEL staffing supports. And I put that picture in there because I want to recognize that I am standing on the shoulders of giants. I know Dr. Kroll is not here, and Dr. Lataz, who was in the seat before I was, are not here, but they've done a tremendous amount of work in building the capacity of our counseling staff. That being said, we have a couple of different categories that I would highlight for people when we're talking about our counseling staff. We have school psychologists, and recently we focused them on primarily providing evaluations for special education. That leaves school adjustment counselors being the primary service provider for students through all tiers. And I want to call out, we also have school adjustment counselors that are primarily or solely working the TLC program for students with significant needs, because those programs need that level of support. We have school counselors, often referred to as guidance counselors. They do give counseling. They also have course selection responsibilities, college and career planning, et cetera, like that at the high school. And I also want to recognize the BRIGHT program for where we have counselors for short-term stabilization and transitions. That was all the numbers. So I'm gonna, if it's too much, please stop me and ask questions. I wanted to look at our staffing over the last 4 years and how much it's grown. I want to call out specifically the elementary school, where you look at 4 years ago we had 3 school adjustment counselors spread out across all of the elementary schools. We've now moved that up to 8.4. I did highlight the Dawson and the Davis numbers because I want to make sure that people realize one of those counselors in each one is earmarked specifically for TLC, so they don't necessarily work with the general population. But I feel like you need to know that those have been added positions. In the K through 8, we've doubled. I know I was a big fan of that when I was at Thomas Prince, and I think there's the rationale behind that is the depth of need when you're going from kindergartners to 8th graders. It's a very varied need, and so it makes sense that you have the ability to kind of divide and conquer. When you look at the middle schools, I call out Mount View as well. They've restructured their counseling department, so you do have 3 adjustment counselors there now. One of those is TLC only, but you look at over the last 4 years, we've doubled the middle school counselors as well. And then I think while we're growing programs, I want to point out we're also being really responsible with dropping enrollment at the high school. We did eliminate a guidance position, so that is one area where it's gone down. You see we only have 12 over there right now. And 2 of those school adjustment counselors are TLC as well. Now, the American School Counselors Association has recommendations around caseload size. They recommend 250 per counselor. I've looked at a couple of other groups, and that's a pretty standard number. They also report out on where we are as a nation, as different states. You can see in Massachusetts we're at 339. The national average is 376. Digging into the 250 to 1 number, it's not arbitrary. It's actually, it's research based. There's been meta-analysis done. And the thinking is that it allows counselors to spend 80% of their time directly with students, which is what we want. The research goes back to the 50s, and I think it's important to note that what the research finds is that lower ratios lead to higher attendance, better GPA and test scores, fewer disciplinary incidents, and more college and post-secondary opportunities. So all the things that I think we can agree we want for our kids. That being said, I took a look at what are our current caseloads in the district. And what you'll see is there's the current staffing rates, then the caseloads, and then the third column there is the difference between the recommendation and where they are. You'll see some places we're a little bit below where the recommendations were doing really well. Some places we're a little bit higher. The asterisks denote where you have TLC programs, but I didn't include them in the caseload numbers because they're working with a finite group of kids, a really specialized group of kids, and it wouldn't really reflect what the caseloads actually look like. So you'll see that I highlight Glenwood and Central Tree, and I do that for a couple of different reasons. They're differential between the 250 and what their actual caseload is. It's high. It's not as high as some other places. However, some of those other spots, they have district-wide programs and they have district-wide school adjustment counselors. I want to make sure people realize that in Rutland, we have district-wide programs. We don't have special school adjustment counselors for them. So if there are students in the STEPS program that need counseling, they're receiving support through the general special school adjustment counseling staff. I highlight that because if we're going to continue the trend and we look at the plan that my predecessors had for kind of building upon, the strategic plan for building upon staffing, that would be where my next recommendation would be. And again, we're talking about a marginalized population that's potentially being underserved. That's what I have to talk with you folks about, but I'm here for questions, any specifics, and I can pop back to any slides that you might have questions about.
That was a lot of great information that I don't know that we've gotten in such detail before, so that was very interesting. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Does anybody have any questions? Member Gustafson?
I just have one, and I'll look more closely at the data when I have it in front of me, but thank you for all your hard work. My only question was about the last slide where you had the Rutland schools highlighted, but I also noticed a huge discrepancy at 2 of the Holden elementary schools, and I know that you said they have the TLC programs, but they're not included in those numbers, so those are pretty high discrepancies, particularly Dawson. So I was curious if there is a plan to address that, or how that factors in, knowing that you didn't count the specialized program because they have their own managers. So on paper it looks like they have more staff, but on this you can see the number is quite large, especially for Dawson. And I'm curious how, if there's a thought on how to deal with that.
Yeah, no, I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, and that's why I tried to present both as caseload and also as staffing ratios, because I think that paints a little bit clearer of a picture of it. I would say that, I'm not coming up here and saying, I think we need some more support in Rutland and then we're done. I think I'm trying to be really cognizant and really strategic as to where we're placing resources and when they're coming. So I don't think that this is the end, but I do think that the next step makes sense to be in Rutland.
I can say too, just to add on top of that, I think these are the discussions that we're hoping to get into during the budget retreat. And one of the focuses you're going to hear us speaking about during that, Member Gustafson, is equity, right? And what does it mean? Where can we go? One of the things I share is that if you look at that counseling sheet, I'm not sure. I want to cheat right now and look, but I'm pretty sure I can tell you this. The last school that got a adjustment counselor added and finally got to 1 is Houghton, right? And so we're trying to look at the particular needs, not only balance it with data, but then also with the experience and the school's performance, and ask ourselves those questions. But like I think Chair Salmon Garrett had said, that's where I think we can have some really good discussions during the budget retreat, because that is going to be one of our focuses, both equity in terms of looking at our staffing and particularly potentially different experiences at different schools because of the staffing. And I would say that primarily, if you look at the growth, you've probably seen those happen at the Holden Elementary schools thus far, which needed to, because I will tell you the TLC programs were not supported in the manner they needed to be. But I think we also have to look at the other programming that we have. I would echo with ACE on paper on the numbers. You necessarily wouldn't identify the K-8 schools, but because they are serving, really, it's a unique ask of those community schools. You want to balance both the data with the actual needs in terms of what's going on at those schools. And so we're really hoping to have those conversations and for people to ask those questions and really kind of dig into that at the budget retreat. I think the other thing you're going to see us focusing on, and I would appreciate and would feel the exact same comment that you had made, is we're trying to give you data that gives you an eye for the kids who aren't as successful as other students. Like we spoke when we were sharing our data, Director Rose talked to the committee about how we're doing. One of the things that has been of note now for several years that I've been in the district is our high needs population, okay, students who are on IEPs, our families who are have our low socioeconomic status, and then also our English learners do not have the same results as the rest of the district. And we need to start asking ourselves, what are we doing to change that experience? And I think we certainly have done things, programmatically trying to focus on, tier 1, and making sure kids don't get removed for services. But then I think we also have to be creative and look at how do we welcome these families? I think that's a big point of ACE's presentation. Like when we first welcome these families to the district, do we know what services they require? Or do we know if they're an English learner, what supports they may need in place? Have we made sure they know that in the district, if you are struggling financially, we can offer support? I've talked about this numerous times. We're a very fee-dependent district, and are we excluding kids unintentionally because we charge them fees for extracurriculars, whether it be drama at the middle school level or it be athletics at multiple levels? And so I think we have to have those conversations and have to understand that when we can't reach out our hand at the initial stages to these families, we've missed an opportunity, and we're going to be trying to play catch up from that moment forward. And I think similarly, we ask those questions about how we're supporting in guidance, right? We see it's 2 to 1. Like our chronically absent students, general population, and those groups, twice as often, is twice as much. And then, is it really a surprise, right? When kids are, 20% of those kids are missing 18 school days, which is a lot, and then you compound that with staff absences, there's a significant part of the school year where kids aren't getting instruction and able to get support. And so these are really important conversations for us to have. And I would agree, I think it's really good for us to see the data and start saying, okay, what are we doing? Because I'm really hoping that these are some of the budget priorities along with a strategic plan that we can talk about this year.
Thank you. Thank you all for the data. I mean, I don't remember when we've had so much data, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Member Woodland?
So I have 2 questions. One is Simple. The Power School plugin, is that for parents to be able to put in absences, or is that like a reporting mechanism on the back end for internal?
For right now, we're looking at it as a back-end report on. I'm not sure if there's a.
It has some functionality to integrate with the parent portal for that parent.
Okay, because that would be great. I mean, just, I have
That's
a ninth
something we
grader
wanted.
now,
Yeah.
and it's amazing to just be able to do that instead of.
Love it.
My other question is just about the Houghton and Choxet numbers on this chart, because there's also, I thought unless my brief hiatus off of the committee, I missed this, I thought there was a district program at Houghton and Choxet as well. And so how does that get factored into the ratios, like with the TLC program and the STEP program?
No, I think that's a great question. I think to Dr. Riley's point, I think that's a further conversation down the road.
It's a further conversation. We actually talked about it. We had a budget meeting today with Tina Boss, and I asked her that specific question when we were looking at the staffing request. And I think ideally what you want to make sure is that what kind of additional supports most benefit the students who are in a particular program. And so PACE program, I think we look at BCBA support and some other things, but it is important. And we had a little bit of that discussion today, but again, I would say at the budget retreat, we should be talking about this, and like I said, I mean, I think we're proud that these numbers have increased a lot, and I think we want to show people, like, look, when we talk about adding positions and focusing on certain things, that you can see that we really have added these positions. But we would certainly say, and I think, yes, Ace said this, it's not perfect. And we'd be happy to share our thinking around that, so because some cases in that constellation of SEL, whether it's psychologists, school adjustment counselors, in some cases BCBAs, those are the conversations I think we want to have, and would certainly be happy to share with the committee about what our thinking is, so we can get some feedback.
Great, thank you.
You got it.
You mentioned early on that there was the policy was out of date, and that you would, maybe I missed it, but could you be specific about what you're referring to there? And
So the attendance policy was older and didn't have a whole lot of language to it. So we have something coming to sub-policy which aligns with the work of the attendance task force, and which has been vetted by council. So it should give principals and you a little bit more ability to enforce attendance issues.
okay.
Any other questions?
So one question, earlier in the presentation, you discussed reporting to the state, all the absences across 13 schools. If a student was absent, and I feel like I heard this answer somewhere before when we talked about chronic absenteeism, but hear me again. If a student is absent for a medical reason, they come in with a note, or whether their parent calls them out sick, just on a medical level, the state doesn't care.
Yes.
Both of those equally count as towards the absenteeism tally.
An absence is an absence in the eyes of the state. And now, I don't want that to be misconstrued. That, if your student is sick, we want you to keep them home, and if they need medical attention, we want you to receive that. But we also want to be clear and make sure the parents know that that is, even you come in with a note, we're going to excuse it on the building level and on the district level, but for the state, they're still looking at that as an absence.
Okay. And one other question I had, real brief. This is a tough data mining question, and I'll even throw some staff in here. Was there anywhere from August through June that you all saw a spike across absenteeism counts, more so than any other random day in the school year?
Give me the months again.
Yeah, so
'Cause I
anytime
can't answer that, but I will find an answer for
Yeah,
that. So,
no, I was just curious. So from, all right, we'll say September through June, were there unusual spikes in absenteeism for staff or kids? For example, I'll say the week before Christmas or the week before President's Day. Any unusual patterns in the calendar year related to the days, or when it happened more often?
It's a good question. I can do some data analysis on that.
Yeah.
I suspect probably cold and flu season.
Yeah.
There's an increase, but I won't stand on that until I do a little bit more research.
No, perfect. No, just curiosity thing.
Oh, it's
No, I think, and it's good. I'll be honest with you. This for the first year this year, DESI's tracking staff attendance, and that's something that actually you can see. And so we haven't done that work. I know I haven't done the work when we really looked at that or trends. It all has an impact. I think to be clear, and I think Ace said this, and I think I want to be real honest. Look, there are some very nasty viruses right now, and I would fully expect we've had the staff members. And certainly also students who people are going to be out for 5 days straight because we are getting really serious respiratory illnesses at this time. The flu, COVID, RSV, like all of these things are having a big impact. I think what's important, and I would want people to understand, is we're not looking attendance in terms of a punitive aspect. And so it's not necessarily always whether or not there's a legitimate reason for a child to be out of school. And we certainly understand medical appointments, you're not going to be able to take your child to the doctor on Saturday. I think what we want to, though, look at is the fact that not being in school has an impact on education. And it's really important because I can tell you the district is not trending in the right direction. And so it's something that we need to call out early. And we need to, I think, acknowledge a couple of things. First of all, to look at the plan, as Ace just shared, I think they did a very good job with special education in identifying a couple of factors that they can impact. And now we need to make sure we take that work and apply it to other areas where we can. The trouble and how this relates to our guidance staff and the numbers we have is we have traditionally been staffed to perform crisis functions, right? It's the story of the district, okay? We get in crisis response modes, and so all our resources go to solving problems that could have been prevented if we had systems in place and adequate approaches. And that's what we're trying to do. So whether it's MTSS and we're trying to support struggling learners, or in this case, make sure that we have staff that can proactively work with our kids on social skills. A lot of the advanced kind of just services that we want to provide for kids instead of kids who are in crisis and school adjustment counselors are bouncing from child to child because there's an issue or crisis they need to address. And much like that, the answer a lot of the times around attendance is making sure that we have good relationships with kids, okay, and families. And it's not about saying, well, you missed this and now you're going to get a bad grade. It's about, we missed you. Are you okay? What can we do to help you? Okay? We need to get to that point. And I think partly by looking at our staff, that's going to help us get there. We need to make sure we have the approach and the system in place, but sometimes it's backed by resources, and that's why these resources are so important.
Any other questions? Nope, seeing none. Thank you, Director Thompson.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions about anything in the superintendent's report? Seeing none, we will move on the agenda. Next is the consent agenda for the secretary's report. I will accept a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the following motions: to approve the regular meeting minutes of December 8th, 2025, to approve the use of vans for an overnight field trip to the MASC Annual Conference, March 4th to March 6th, 2026, to approve an overnight field trip to the Model UN Conference in Boston, February 6th to February 8th, 2026, and to accept a $2,500 grant from the Rutland Cultural Council to Central Tree Middle School.
So moved.
Second.
Brett and Linda. Does anyone want anything removed from the consent agenda?
The minutes have an error. There's an error in the minutes. There's a date that's incorrect, so I would like to remove those
Okay.
to correct it.
Anything else?
Sorry.
So we will be voting on this with removing to approve the regular meeting minutes of December 8th, 2025. And we'll move to a roll call vote.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Klein?
Klein, yes.
Member Garden?
Gavard, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Renstrom?
Renstrom, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Dubois?
Dubois, yes.
Member Borison?
Borison, yes.
And Chair Sandra Garrett.
The chair abstains and the motion passes. I will accept a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of December 8th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Scott and Linda? Okay, Scott and Linda. Member Gustafson, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, it is such a minor change. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. Under the chair's remarks, the second paragraph says that we will have a meeting in the Curriculum Center on February 27th, which is a Friday. So I don't know the exact date that that is supposed to be, but it does say it's February 27th.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's the 24th.
Mhm. Yep. Okay. So a motion to amend the minutes to,
Can I make a motion to amend since I wasn't there?
Yeah.
well, you're the one wanting to
Sure,
amend
I
the
will make a
minutes.
motion to amend that to read February 24th.
Second.
We'll move to a roll call vote. Sorry, Randy.
Sorry.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Klein?
Klein, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Borison?
Borison, yes.
Member Dubois? Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Renstrom?
Renstrom, yes.
Chair Sandra Garrett.
The chair abstains. The motion and the amendment passes. We'll now move to a vote on the motion with the amended date in the minutes. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Member Klein?
Klein, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Borison?
Borison, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Renstrom?
Renstrom, yes.
Member Dubois?
Dubois, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Chair Sandra Garrett.
The chair abstains and the motion passes. Next up is committee business. First, I will accept a motion to amend policy 4320, policy related to budget finance, purchasing procedures, first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Lucinda Poole,
Waiving the reading.
waiving the reading. Member Brennan, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, I would. I actually have a, oh, no, never mind. Sorry, I'm like out of my place here. Okay, so Business and Finance decided to amend this policy in order to keep it in line with current MGL and MASC, along with taking out specifics that do not align with current business office practices.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Member Dubois?
Dubois, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Borison?
Borison, yes.
Member Renstrom?
Renstrom, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Klein?
Klein, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Chair Sandra Garrett.
The chair abstains and the motion passes. I will accept a motion to amend policy 4323.1, policy related to budget finance, purchasing authority, first reading, waiving the reading.
So moved.
Second.
Brennan and Woodland. Member Brennan, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. So for this policy, it is the same as the previous policy. We were just updating it with current MGL and to keep it in line with MASC policies.
Great, thank you. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Borison?
Borison, yes.
Member Stoika? I'm going to start over. Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Klein?
Klein, yes.
Member Dubois?
Dubois, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Renstrom?
Renstrom, yes.
Member Woodlands?
Woodland, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Morrison?
Morrison, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Chair Seven.
The chair abstains, and the motion passes. Next, I will accept a motion, did we just do point 2? Sorry.
No, we did point one.
We did point 1, sorry. I was on the right spot. I will accept the motion to amend policy 4323.2, policy related to budget finance, bidding requirements, first reading, waiving the reading.
So move.
Second.
Woodland and Brennan. Member Brennan?
Yes, so this is the same as the previous ones. We wanted to make sure that it was correct with current MGL and current practices, and also that it read clearly. But I did want to bring up a potential issue with the last paragraph.
Is it the, okay, sorry.
So the wording for the last 2 paragraphs is from the MASC sample policy. And a number of other districts have it that way. But it doesn't really quite make sense and follow MGL exactly, because it mentions 10,000 or greater for needing the bidding, but 10,000 or less to just use sound business practices. The problem is that 10,000 is in both of them. So the MGL actually would state, the line would be a procurement for a supply or service in an amount less than 10,000 shall be obtained through the exercise of sound business practice. So we can either make an amendment on the floor if everyone's okay with that, or we can pull the policy for another time.
Is that the one thing that you?
That's the one thing.
I would say make an amendment here.
Okay. So in that case, I'd like to make an amendment to state that the last paragraph should say, a procurement for a supply or service in an amount less than 10,000 shall be obtained through the exercise of sound business practices.
Second.
Do you want to repeat it?
I did not catch everything.
Yeah, can you repeat it slowly?
Yeah,
for her
sure.
So she's able to read it back.
A procurement for supply or service in the amount of
Slow.
So now I'm getting it wrong. A procurement for a supply or service in an amount less than 10,000 shall be obtained through the exercise of sound business practices.
Got it?
And so the first part, that was the last paragraph, is changing to that, you're adding a sentence, is that what?
We're changing the last sentence.
Changing the sentence
Yep.
So if you
in the last paragraph.
just strike through 10,000 or less and say less than 10,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Yep.
Do we have any discussion on the amendment?
I just wanted to point out, based on the first paragraph where there's a strike through, it appears that up till now or today, you know, if there was an expenditure of $10,000, essentially this is a change in policy for the $10,000 purchase point. So people who make purchases need to know that it's a change in protocol. So not only are we changing policy, but people who are doing this routinely need
Right.
to know
Yeah,
that.
They already do because they're following MGL. It's just our policy wasn't up to date with the current practices and the current law. So they're already
Okay,
doing what they're
okay.
supposed to be
So
doing.
the strike through in the first paragraph is to correct it and
Right.
put it in line with MGL. Got
Right.
it. Yeah, I just want
Administration
to make sure
is-
that
That's why
we,
administration is always involved in policies, so they know when these things are
Absolutely.
getting changed, they might need to change practice.
okay. I just wanted to make sure from a practical standpoint, we're all set.
Yeah, no, Director Grisey was involved in all these, so.
Any other questions or comments on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote on the amendment.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Klein?
Klein, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Borison?
Borison, yes.
Member Renstrom?
Renstrom, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Dubois?
Dubois, yes.
Chair Senator.
The chair abstains, and the amendment passes. Any discussion on the amended motion? Member Rundstrom?
So I just have a question about the policy itself. So we've raised the requirement for sealed bids from $50,000 to $100,000. $100,000 seems like a lot to me. Maybe I'm just old and haven't kept up with inflation. But is that in line with what other districts or other parts of the state require in terms of sealed bids?
My understanding was that it was MGL.
Okay.
So I don't think there was a lot of choice.
Okay.
It's MGL for school districts. I think they're actually changing the thresholds for all towns and municipalities, but that threshold went from $50,000 to $100,000 probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Borison?
Borison, yes.
Member Klein?
Klein, yes.
Member Dubois?
Dubois, yes.
Member Renstrom?
Renstrom, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Chair Senator.
The chair abstains, and the motion passes. I will accept a motion to delete policy 4323.3, policy related to budget finance, vendor contracts, first reading, waiving the reading.
So moved.
Second.
Brennan and Woodland. Member Brennan, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. So when we were doing our research on this group of policies, we could not find any other policies, either in name or content, that related to this in other districts or in MASC. And there isn't a lot of MGL in it either. And in talking with Director Grisey, it seems like these were things that some were just general practice and that didn't really need its own standalone policy. So we thought that we didn't need an extra policy that wasn't really serving us.
Okay. Any discussions or question? Member Klein?
I just had a question regarding the third paragraph in DP 4323.3 related to general liability. And I'm wondering what our general practice is if we're not going to have a policy that calls out what insurance we might require from subcontractors or vendors. I'm just like, if we don't have it in policy, where do we have it? Like, how do we, like, if there's subcontract work done? I don't know if MGL requires it or.
I'm trying to find this to see exactly what you're looking at.
There were 4 paragraphs total, and
Yeah, so
the other
there's-
3 didn't really bother me, but this one kind of
It just
relates to liability, and
right.
there's
that it
some
wants
big projects once in a
contractors to
while.
have $1 million.
I am pretty sure that when we are, like, if we're contracting out, it's part of like, if we're bidding out and we're doing a contract, it's part of that contract and part of 30B regulations. I'd have to look it up for you.
It's part of what regulations?
Yeah, 30B. I think
It's
part of
30B, okay.
Regulations.
I assumed there's some state some MGL or something that would cover contracting.
Right.
It's not familiar, so I just brought it up because
When we're going out to bid, all of our contracts, like if you look at our transportation contract, they're inherent in those contracts are insurance, like insurance, liability insurance coverage. So, and I think it's part of 30B. I'd have to go through.
Okay, as long as you're comfortable with it, that's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Dubois?
Dubois, yes.
Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Renstrom?
Renstrom, yes.
Member Klein?
Klein, yes.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Poole?
Poole, yes.
Member Borison?
Borison, yes.
Chair Senator.
The chair abstains, and the motion passes. I will accept a motion to amend policy 3510, policy related to education, class size, first reading, waiving the reading.
So moved.
Second.
Woodland and Rutstrom. Any questions or discussions or discussion? Member Rutstrom, would you like to speak?
So I think the superintendent already mentioned this as part of his report. This came up in our recent collective bargaining. But besides, we're not just doing it because it's in the contract. We're already doing this, and it's good practice. So I think it's a good idea for the school committee to adopt this paragraph regardless of whether it's in the union contract.
Mm-hmm. There's also been discussion of changing policies within collective bargaining agreements isn't necessarily the best practice and way to go about things. So for this one, it had already been agreed to, so we're happy to do it at this time. So, any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Member Beardmore?
Beardmore, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Gustafson, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Brennan?
Brennan, yes.
Member Borison?
Borison, yes.
Member Klein?
Klein, yes.
Member Dubois? Member Lorway?
Lorway, yes.
Member Runstrom?
Renstrom, yes.
Member Gavarden?
Gavarden, yes.
Member Poole?
Pool, yes.
The chair abstains, the motion passes. Next up, we have subcommittee reports from the Business and Finance Subcommittee. Member Brennan.
Sure. Business and Finance met last week, and we discussed E&D certification, which you can find in the superintendent's report, and along with our normal treasurer's report and reviewing our monthly up-to-date expenses. We spent most of the meeting discussing the FY27 budget and the upcoming budget retreat, and discussing basically how we thought that retreat meeting could be the most useful for school committee and for administration. And then we have our next meeting is next month. I think it's on the 12th of February. I would have to double check that.
Next up is Policy Subcommittee. Member Beardmore.
Yeah, two key takeaways from our last meeting, which was in December. One is we've really finalized our list of checks for each policy, so I'd like the whole group to look at that. I'd like to propose that we add it to the handbook in due time. The second part is we've added 2 meetings on the books for February and March, so we'll be meeting twice both those months to try to do a final push towards the end of the year. And our next meeting is Thursday.
Great. Thank you. Legal Affairs Subcommittee. Member Runstrom.
Yes, the most interesting thing I think is we've had now 5 sessions with the WREA to discuss future contracts. I think we're having productive discussions, and we'll be giving you an update on how that's going in executive session later today. We're also about to start negotiations with the nurses union. We have not had a public meeting since our last school committee meeting, but I'm planning one within the next month to go over legal expenses for Q2, the end of the year, the last quarter. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Goals and Evaluation Subcommittee. Member Dubois.
We met on December 22nd. We elected Member Woodland as vice chair, and then we looked at district policy around superintendent evaluation, and we looked at where we were being at year 2 of the 2-year cycle of evaluation, and we used the policy to backdate the calendar for meetings for the rest of the year. And we are eyeing February 9th or 10th as our next meeting.
Great. Thank you. Facilities and Security Subcommittee. Member Poole.
Yep, so we met, it's been about a month now. We discussed the regional agreements. My understanding is that there was an upcoming meeting with the town managers that we'll get an update on tomorrow, I'm guessing. We discussed a couple policies that are in our docket, and we'll be discussing those again more tomorrow. And our next meeting is tomorrow night.
Great. Thank you. Next up is Management Subcommittee. Management Subcommittee met right before this meeting. You've been given a draft of operating protocols that have been discussed so far, although that draft is already quite changed by the management subcommittee from our discussions tonight. The subcommittee hopes to produce a succinct document that outlines important reminders about the work that we do as a school committee and how our policies and bylaws have us work together. This is the start of that document. And like I said, we already made some changes, so I ask that you please email me any ideas about what else you might want to see covered in these operating protocols. The intention for this document is to be reviewed and signed by each member at the start of the new term after elections in May. Thank you. Next up is Audit Advisory Board, and with an audit that's still not complete, we do not have an update at this time. The CPAC Liaison Report.
Sure. Just to restate what the chair said in her opening remarks, I think the most important thing is the CPAC Community Forum is coming up on Wednesday, January 21st at 7 p.m. That will be held at the Curriculum Center, the Central Office Curriculum Center, and there is also an online version for anyone who'd like to participate online. At the Community Forum, Dr. Riley and Director DeAngelis will both be there to answer questions. You can bring your questions to the Community Forum. There's also a Google form to submit questions in advance. It's an anonymous Google form that can be obtained from the CPAC Facebook page. If you need any assistance finding that, you can either reach out to me or to the CPAC representatives, and we'd be happy to forward your questions as part of the Community Forum. Besides the community forum, there was a general membership meeting last week on Wednesday the 7th. One productive thing that came out of that was we found school liaisons for each of the schools, or almost all the schools in the district, for CPAC, which was great. They also talked about activities for an upcoming Disability Awareness Month in March. And there were some interesting ideas proposed by a parent for additional jobs as part of the postgrad program at Wachusett, and we were trying to connect her with people at the high school. We also had a meeting with administration and CPAC today. It was a fairly brief but productive meeting.
Great. Thank you. Next up are school council reports. Does anyone have a report? Member Brennan?
Yes, the high school Simco met on January 2nd. We had a principal update about everything that's going on in the schools. They are, since it is budget season, they are working on their budget. Principal Pratt is working on it with his department heads to then work with Director Grisey and Dr. Riley on that. And he updated the Simco on the presentation that we got in December on all the new classes and programs that they are planning on adding to the high school in the fall. And he spoke about the upcoming and now past open house that was Thursday night. And then we did spend some time looking at potential surveys for parents and students to get feedback on mental health, culture, and homework in the school.
Thank you. Any other school council reports? Member Beardmore?
Yeah, Central Tree met December 18th. It was pretty much a kickoff type. It was our first meeting. So it was a lot of just kind of new introductions and setting up the plan for the year. And we'll be meeting again on January 22nd.
Great. Thank you. Any more? Member Klein?
Let's see, the Houghton Chalkset meets jointly, and I attended my first meeting with that group on the 16th of December. I had inadvertently been left off the list, so I missed more than one meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I have a note that the previous meeting was on the 18th of November, in case that matters for the minutes here. One of the recollections I have from the December meeting that I think is important, and it applies to all of the schools, is there was some question, the teachers or the staff were really questioning whose responsibility and how we plan for furniture replacement, because there's a lot of wear and tear on our furniture, and I guess from my standpoint, it's kind of in that space, almost like oral surgery is in the medical field. Is it really, is it the responsibility of the towns, or is it the responsibility of the school district to replace furniture, tables, et cetera? So my sense is this is best discussed in detail in the subcommittee, facilities subcommittee, of which I'm part of. So I'm just open to any input anybody might have in terms of how this is dealt with, and that can be offline. But it seems like making sure chairs aren't falling apart and teachers aren't responsible for buying their own furniture is pretty important. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we met with Tina today, and it's one of the items that she certainly has put in her budget request. We talked about it. I think one of the things we have to find out is actually scope, you know what I mean, and to have a plan. I think there are a lot of things. I talked a little bit earlier tonight about systems, and yeah, there are replacement plans that we need to put in place at a lot of our schools.
Right.
You know, I'd say PCS, another one that I look around and see the condition of a lot of furniture. And so,
Yeah.
Absolutely. First of all, happy when it fits on the agenda for facilities to
And-
share an update on it. And then I'd also say it's definitely represented in Ms. Boss's, you know, needs request in
Yeah,
the
and
budget.
my sense was really systematizing it somehow.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of doing piecemeal replacement, where everything's non-standard, you know, the janitors are running around in circles,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what kind of chair they're dealing with.
Lack
any
of
moment in time.
systems, crisis. It's everywhere, you know, it really is. Just
Thank you.
represents where we
It seems trivial, but it's furniture
Not,
costs
it's
a
not,
lot.
it's not trivial. You know, I think anyone who's been in the library, you know, I think we need, one of the things we spoke about today is the condition of some of the classroom rugs at both schools. And so, nope, we're very thankful, I will say, of the town partnerships. And I think we've put a lot into our schools in the last few years, but there are still needs. And so appreciate it all.
Anything else, Member Klein?
That's all I have for now.
Great.
There's
Member
not, I
Gustafson?
don't recall that there's a specific meeting scheduled
Okay.
for the next meeting.
Great, thanks. Member Gustafson?
No, I didn't have a question. I
Oh.
had a report.
Yeah, no, that's what sorry.
Sorry.
I'm calling on you for that.
Well, the Mayo Simcoe met on January 6th. I was out of the country. However, I did get detailed minutes, and I will be at the next meeting on February 3rd. They talked in detail about the entry plan from the new principal there, and she's awesome. She has graphics and updates, and I'm very impressed so far with her communication, at least with me. And shared some details, a visual and a report, an update. Also followed up on some data from the previous meeting about the STAR report, attendance reporting was discussed, nurse visits and attendance was also a topic of discussion, and then some specific discussion on the school improvement plans related to specific curriculum. So doing good things, and I will be at the meeting on February 3rd, and virtually because it's in the middle of my workday. But I'm glad I can go. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on. Does anyone have new business? Member Rundstrom?
So we heard from a citizen at the beginning of the meeting today that was asking for support for a community garden project in Paxton. They did send me some more information. They're not asking for any money from us or anything. It's actually not on school property. It's on a parcel adjacent to the Paxton Center School. So they're just asking for the committee's support for a grant application, just saying that we support the project. So I'd like to make a motion to authorize the chair to write a letter on behalf of the committee in support of that community garden.
Okay.
I don't know if we can do that tonight or we do it next time.
Next, I think it's going to be next time.
Okay.
Send me an email so I remember.
Okay.
Anything else? What?
Oh.
Oh, yeah, time.
Yeah, that was.
Okay.
I strictly don't know that you need authorization to write that letter. I was just sort of, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any ideas for new business should be sent to the chair with a rationale for its decision on a future agenda. At this time, I will accept a motion to enter into executive session to discuss strategy for contract negotiations with all bargaining units as the chair deems a discussion in public session would have an adverse effect on the district's bargaining position, not to return to public session.
Second.
Woodland and Govardhan we're going with this time. Oh, Yeah, I should have picked Bernadette. I think she's on every one. We'll move to a roll call vote.
Renstrom, yes.
Dubois, yes.
Beardmore, yes.
Woodland, yes.
Klein, yes.
She's not there.
Gavard, yes.
Gustafson, yes.
Brennan, yes.
Oh, yes.
Morrison, yes.
The chair votes yes, and the motion passes. So for executive session, members are going to move to the side room so that we can give these guys a chance to clean up while we're not here.